On this week's episode of Inside Outside Innovation, we talk about portfolio entrepreneurship, how AI tools are transforming market research, and new brain research that indicates adulthood starts later than you think. Let's get started. Inside Outside Innovation is the podcast to help innovation leaders navigate what's next. Each week, we'll give you a front row seat into what it takes to grow and thrive in a world of hyper uncertainty and accelerating change. Join me, Brian Ardinger, and Mile Zero's Robyn Bolton as we discuss the latest tools, tactics, and trends for creating innovations with impact. Let's get started. Welcome to another episode of Inside Outside Innovation. I'm your host, Brian Ardinger, and with me I have Robyn Bolton from Mile Zero. Welcome, Robyn.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Great to have you again. This is episode 343-ish. We're excited to continue to talk about innovation. There's always something new and exciting to talk about. Anything going on in your world this week?
I feel like this week I'm going to be spending it grading finals papers. Wrapped up my corporate innovation course at Boston College, and everyone submitted their finals, and that's all great, and they're done. And I'm now just looking at a stack of digital stack of papers.
At Nelnet this week, we've got our Spark, which is our monthly gathering of folks. We find some interesting project and give them opportunities to sit on stage and talk about what some of the new things that are building out there. And it's an opportunity to get our movers and shakers in the same room and share what's going across the different business units. So we're always excited for our Spark this week. Those are some of the things that are happening in my world.
I'll happily come out and go to your Spark event. You can grade my
welcome
papers
anytime. We've got a lot of things to cover today. We've got 3 articles that we've curated over the last week or so. The first one we want to talk about is Everyone's a Founder Now, and it's from Every, and it's a YouTube channel, and it's an interview with Henrik Werdelin. And Henrik is a person who started Prehype, started BarkBox, and he has got a new company called Audos. It's a platform that helps people use AI agents to turn ideas into profitable companies. This particular YouTube video in this interview was talking a lot about some of these new tools and how it's really changing the landscape of startups and can apply to corporate innovation as well. With these new tools, Henrik was talking about this idea of portfolio entrepreneurship. So the idea of a new breed of entrepreneurship that's shepherded by AI, where founders build family of products or services around the same customer instead of like one moonshot idea. So rather than coming up with Facebook and building that out, there's an opportunity now for entrepreneurs to create maybe more single, double, triple types of companies around a core set of customers that they know and can work with. And it's a variety of different projects and services that can serve that particular marketplace versus the traditional model of venture capital that we've seen out there kind of shooting for the moon.
It's a really interesting video, and I encourage people to go watch it. They talk about a lot in this video. And, some of the ones that I want to highlight, and you've already touched on this, is one, what he's building with Audos. Going back to our last episode where we talked about the Mad Lib, I actually went over to Audos, and you can fill in a Mad Lib for your business idea. And I think in 10 minutes, it built a fully functioning website, videos, everything. It was amazing. I have no idea how to edit any of it or do anything, but like just the speed at which you could take a Mad Libs and create something that looked like a viable business was astounding. He also talked about, as you mentioned, the importance of picking a target customer and one that you want to serve for 10 years. And he talked about with BarkBox, it was all about serving the dog owner. And most people would talk about, oh, well, you did BarkBox, now do MeowBox, now do whatever box. And he's like, that wasn't going to work. They went from BarkBox to basically like airplanes for dogs to other things. And it was always the people who are going to win in this new kind of world are the ones who go really deep on a very specific customer. And then kind of where this all started of the portfolio entrepreneur, he did a great job calling out VCs and saying, hey, VCs will tell an entrepreneur, you have to go all in on one idea. Don't you dare get distracted with a portfolio. And yet the VCs are there being like, here's our portfolio. And is a great point.
Yeah, and I'm seeing more and more folks. I've been having conversations about like startup ecosystems and it used to be where you'd have A players and they'd have to find a team and build out something from that perspective. And now an A player can use these platforms like Audos to vibe code and kind of get things up and going. And they don't necessarily have to raise money. They don't necessarily have to go through the 10-year journey to get to an exit before they're actually profitable in that. These tools allow you to, if you have some insight, some access to customers, something like that, you can start quickly. You can start making progress, and maybe you don't have the billion-dollar exit, but a nice $100 million exit that you built yourself might be a nice little way to play this particular game that wasn't possible necessarily before AI and some of the new tools and no-code stuff that's available to you now.
Yeah, I don't know too many people who would turn their noses up at 100 million or even a $10 million exit.
Zuckerberg did, but other than that,
Well,
let's see. The second article on our list today is from HBR. Harvard always seems to put out some good stuff, but their article in the Harvard Business Review is called "The AI Tools That Are Transforming Market Research." This was an interesting take on how AI is impacting how research is done, and some of the interesting things that they were talking about are some of the new ways that people are using AI to create a variety of different personas and digital twins, and using the AI as a way to interact and kind of mimic or facilitate what used to be something you'd have to do with actual customers, or creating the real thing before you could actually get some feedback on it. And AI is allowing you to create these synthetic personas and digital twin types of scenarios that speed up the learning process when it comes to working with customers.
yeah, this is another topic, I think like all things AI at this point, where people are all in and like, yes, this is the future. And other people are like, absolutely not. The reality is it's and, not or. I've used surveys, I've used synthetic personas with surveys, and it is awesome. Absolutely awesome in terms of streamlining, developing the survey, testing the survey, making sure that you have the questions phrased the right way, the answers phrased the right way. And I'm still sending the survey to people.
To real people.
Exactly. So it's a great tool to speed things and to hone your questions, develop richer personas, but you need humans in there. You need actual people to inform the decisions you're about to make.
I have a friend who's starting a AI startup that is focused on these kind of synthetic personas, but more for, let's say, a salesperson, and to role play particular scenarios. Or you put in, let's say you're a lawyer and you are going into a negotiation, you put in the profile tactics that you want to get out of it, who's going to be in the meeting, and based on those profiles, it can interact and have a conversation. So you can almost practice that negotiation or practice that particular scenario. And I think that's going to get better and better. And I think as long as you use it as a training tool rather than the be-all, end-all solution, you're probably better off on that path versus relying on AI as the only way to shortcut some of the things you really have to do in the real world.
And especially using it to role play. As someone who hates role play, because I'm like, oh, please let me just expose my ignorance and how bad I am at this thing to somebody else. It makes it a lot safer because whatever, this AI isn't going to judge me. I'm much more willing to role play, practice sales pitches, things like that. And so there's a potential for some real upskilling with these synthetic personas. And so that's not to be dismissed.
And I think the final point about the article is, how is this going to change your ability to actually do research? It used to be, market research is not cheap. And so, can you get to 20% of the answer or 80% of the answer where you would have had to spend a lot of more time, money, resources to go down that particular path? So that alone will change the marketplace for market research and could change the game too.
And with the pace that everything's moving, if you can, something as simple as drafting a survey, if you can go from first survey draft to putting it in field in a week versus it used to take a month, all the better.
Excellent. All right. Well, the last article is kind of a fun one we threw into the newsletter, more from the standpoint of we're always looking for interesting new scientific research and new things that we're seeing out there. And this article is called "Brain Has 5 Eras," scientists say, with adult mode not starting until early 30s. And this is from The Guardian. Scientists have actually identified 5 major epochs of human brain development in one of the most comprehensive studies to date on how neural wiring changes from infancy to old age. And the study looked at brain scans of 4,000 people aged from 1 to 90 and mapped their neural connections on how they evolved during their lives. And that revealed that there are 5 broad phases that folks go through, split up into these 4 pivotal turning points where the brain reorganizes itself in such a way and gives you different categories. So the first area was from 0 to 9. Then it was 32 was the second age bracket change, 66, and then 83. Now, is this a kind of an interesting look at science and how the brain itself is changing and evolving as we age?
I will admit that the first thing I did as I read this article was think about where was I when I was 32? Because apparently that was my peak. It's unfortunate to say, but I'm like, oh yeah, that was a good age. That was a good year. That actually may have been peak. Also really interesting. My mom was a nursery school teacher. She, specialized in early childhood development, and she always had this rule of like, you kind of had till age 5 to really mold the kid, and then you had a less influence after that. But she also said, age, like, don't make any major decisions, i.e., don't get married before 26. So she kind of naturally had these 2 points. So it was just interesting to read that, like, mom was onto something. She was a few years off, but there is kind of these age milestones around brain development.
It's something interesting, and it'll be interesting to see how this plays out as well in different formats. I think about social media and how it's brain rotting ourselves, and is that going to change the wiring of the brain? We'll find that out as well.
I do wonder how much you can influence this, right? We know from other social studies that the more active you are, the more relationships you have, that kind of keeps your brain younger. Maybe my brain is 32 now. Maybe I'm at peak now. I'm going to hope for that.
Well, 66 is coming up, so our last section is the tactics to try. Do you want to go first this time?
So this is actually inspired by the video with Henrik Werdelin, where he talked about one of the things that he did several years ago is he kind of made this list of those magical moments. And basically it's kind of very specific everyday moments that brought him a lot of joy. So like walking to work across Brooklyn Bridge, being at a brainstorming session with his team. So getting very, very specific on that. And so he developed this list of these kind of magical everyday moments. And then when he was at a time where he had 2 competing job offers, one that looked really prestigious, quite high paying, and the other that, it was great, but it wasn't, fancy. And he was able to look at them through the lens of these magical moments and realize that the big fancy one wouldn't have any of those magical moments. And so it made it a lot easier to kind of turn that down and go with the one he went with. And I just thought, what an interesting and important way to kind of use, not just for if you're juggling job offers, but to like really just kind of assess how you're spending your time and if the work you're doing is meaningful. And I'm going to work on making a list of my very specific magical moments, the moments that bring me joy and in the work, and see what that means, see what that holds for 2026.
That's awesome. Well, that's a great segue because my tactic to try is about magical moments. And I want everybody to kind of take out their calendar right now, swipe to Monday, April 13th, 2026, and block it off. And why? Because this is going to be the official launch of the 7th Inside Outside Innovation Summit. Those who follow us for a while know that every year or so we come out with our summit, bring folks into Lincoln, Nebraska to have conversations about the world of startups and innovation. This summit is going to be on April 13th, Monday, the April 13th. And for 2026, we're going to be hosting it at the Sheldon Museum of Art. And the theme is going to be the art and science of innovation. We're going to have over 20 speakers, a gallery of innovation that's going to showcase startups and corporate innovation projects. Plenty of opportunities to mix and mingle with other fellow change makers out there and podcast guests and hosts and fans from around the world. And so whether you think in color or code or theory, design, we welcome you to come over to Lincoln, Nebraska to mix with the other builders, makers, movers, shakers, and founders and creators around the Inside Outside universe. Head over to io2026.com. You can buy early bird tickets. You can learn about sponsors. You can follow along as we announce new speakers and more information as it's to come. And really excited about the next year, the next opportunity, and hopefully you can join us at IO 2026.
The date is blocked on my calendar, and I can guarantee folks, having attended previous IO events, it will be full of magical moments.
That's another episode of Inside Outside Innovation. Look forward to next time when we get together to talk about all the things that are happening in the world of innovation. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.
That's it for another episode of Inside Outside Innovation. Today's episode was produced and engineered by Susan Steibel. If you want to learn more about our teams, our content, our services, check out insideoutside.io. Or if you want to connect with Robyn Bolton, go to milezero.io. And until next time, go out and innovate.